All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Grant Beck, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Next Step Network. Our organization is dedicated to working with a broad group of housing stakeholders across the country to present manufactured housing solutions as a way to address housing supply and affordability challenges. Before we get started, I do want to make sure that folks are aware of one of Next Step's newest resources. Unlocking manufactured housing solutions, how municipalities can drive growth of attainable, sustainable homeownership opportunities, provides recommendations for leveraging factory-built housing to address housing shortages. I hope this toolkit empowers, our hope is that this toolkit empowers a range of housing stakeholders, including policymakers, local officials, advocates, and legislators to unlock the potential of modern manufactured homes in their communities. And thank you, Destiny, for dropping that link in the chat for participants to download. We have a great panel of experts joining us today to discuss their work in this field of housing and how they are working to expand the market for today's manufactured homes. Jill Cravens is the Housing and Community Investment Officer at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati, a regional wholesale bank serving member financial institutions in Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee. Jill oversees the administration of the housing programs, which include the Affordable Housing Program, the Welcome Home Program, the Disaster Reconstruction Program, the Rise Up Program, the 100 Homes Initiative, and the Carol M. Peterson Housing Fund. Logan Haynes is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Manufactured Housing Institute. KMHI is the trade association representing the factory-built housing industry in Kentucky. KMHI supports their members with training, continuing education, and additional information, ensuring that people who design, build, install, sell, and finance factory-built homes have access to the best industry practices available. Ramsey Cohen works on the national sales for Clayton, the largest off-site home builder in the country. Ramsey leads efforts to maintain and strengthen the company's position in relationship with government professionals, nonprofits, and other single-family housing stakeholders. And finally, Rashana Foy is the program manager for Homes by NPHS, a social enterprise that supplies and sells quality, affordable, factory-built homes of all sizes to nonprofit developers and consumers in the Inland Empire of Southern California. Rashana has been with NPHS for 7 years, serving in various roles in furtherance of their mission. Welcome to all of our panelists, and thank you again for being here today. So we're going to jump right into it, and we are going to start with you, Jill. We are all very excited about the launch of the 100 Homes Initiative. Could you tell us more about this initiative and how it will possibly impact the manufactured housing in the bank's service area?
Thank you, Grant. Destiny. So the 100 Homes Initiative is a $5 million voluntary program that we just opened this month. The goal of the program is to move 100 households that are living in mobile homes constructed before June 15th, 1976 into more updated housing. The program offers a $50,000 grant that can be used for down payment, closing costs, if they want to do a principal reduction, if they need to buy land, disposal of the vacated mobile home, and any other fees that are associated with decommissioning the old home. So the goal of the program is to offer this $50,000, and we want them to use the entire $50,000. And we do not want their current home to be maintained. We do not want another household to occupy that dwelling. We want it disposed of. Next slide, please. Just some basic guidelines. As I mentioned, they have to provide proof that they were living in a mobile home that was placed in service before June 15th, 1976. If they were living in such a dwelling and it has been destroyed in a natural disaster, they could be eligible too. They must reside within the 5th district, and the 5th district is Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee. The total household income, and that means the income for all occupants, not just applicants, must be at 120% or less of the mortgage revenue bond limit for the county where the new property will be located. We do want them to use the entire $50,000. We opened the program at 8 a.m. on April 1st, and it will close on December 15th. The home buyer must have a fully executed purchase contract before they can submit a reservation request. So they can't just take a loan application, submit a request for us and then to us, and then go search for a property. They have to have a contract already in hand. Next slide, please. A portion of this money can be used to pay an admin fee to the sponsor. So we do expect our member institution to partner with a nonprofit housing developer, and that sponsor, that's what we call them, may receive up to a 10% admin fee. So they have to identify the households, they have to make sure the property gets decommissioned. If they are building a house, they oversee the construction of the home. We do require the member to partner with a sponsor. Funds are available on a first come, first served basis. The grant can be combined with other down payment or closing cost assistance programs, just not our other programs. This is not a first time home buyer program. They have to complete an online reservation form and upload the documents to us. Only our member can do that. They are the only ones who can access that portal. And this is very important. The homeowners are subject to a 5-year forgivable retention mechanism for the new property. And what that means is it's retention language that goes in the deed. It is not a loan. It is not a lien on the property. If they sell the home within that 5-year period, they may owe us a prorated amount back. Next slide, please. So for our members to be eligible, it's open to all of our members. They do not have to be approved. Funds are available first come, first serve. We believe that's the fairest way to administer this program. They must partner with a nonprofit sponsor. They can partner with more than one nonprofit sponsor. And the reservation is valid only for the specific home buyer and specific property. If something happens and the buyer decides they don't want to buy this property, they want to buy something else, they have to withdraw the request and submit a new one. Next slide. The sponsor must be approved to participate. We want to be sure that these housing developers are familiar with not just the program, but manufactured housing. They know how to identify these households, how to ensure that they qualify for the program. A sponsor may only partner with one member per program year. They must be a nonprofit 501c3 or C4 organization. They must show satisfactory performance with other programs, and they must make appropriate determinations and maintain the correct documentation. Next slide. What makes the home buyer eligible? Any individual or family who owned a mobile home that was built before June 15th, 1976, and they have to provide proof that the mobile home is their primary residence. If it was lost during a disaster, they must provide proof of that loss. They must be provided, proof must be provided of the decommissioning or deconstruction of the mobile home. It cannot be used as a residence by another person, and the grant can be used to cover that cost. And quite frankly, at this point, because the program is so new, we're not sure what that cost might be. We're interested to see what it is. Home buyers must contribute at least $500 of their own money towards the transaction. However, if they're getting a gift from a family member, 60% of that gift, or $300, could be considered towards that $500 down payment. Property eligibility, it must be located in our district. It must be a single family unit. The HHI, the 100 Homes Initiative grant, may only be used in transactions where full title is conveyed to the home buyer. It may not be used to initiate a lease purchase. Do I have another slide? I do not. Oh, I do. I'm sorry. So obviously manufactured housing is eligible. But the home that the household is purchasing does not have to be manufactured housing. If it is eligible if it meets our guidelines. It's fixed to a permanent foundation. It meets FHA guidelines and it's taxed as real property. We have a specific definition in the HHA guide, but the household can purchase a manufactured home. They can construct a new home. They can buy an existing home. We're not telling them that they have to buy another manufactured home. As I had mentioned, the home must be subject to the retention mechanism, so it must be inserted in the warranty deed. There are caveats to that. If their home is destroyed in a disaster, if the homeowner dies, if the home goes into foreclosure, then no recapture is due. They do not have to pay us back. They can use this money for new construction. If they do, the grant must be applied to the permanent financing, not the construction financing. And they have to have the home completed and a funding request submitted to us by 5 p.m. on December 15th. We don't really have a limit on the type of mortgage product they can use. Could be fixed rate, could be an ARM, it could be a balloon. Really, any product is eligible as long as it's not, for example, a 203K, which is an FHA rehab product. You cannot use this for rehab. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. At Next Step, we're very excited for the 100 Homes Initiative coming out of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati. Though our work has taken us all across the country by this point, the genesis of Next Step really began in this effort to replace aging and older mobile homes in Kentucky. So we're thrilled to see a program like this and are looking forward to replicable opportunities to do more of this in states and other districts across the country as well. So we're going to stick in the bank service area and talk more about Kentucky. So Logan, your organization has some recent policy wins in the Commonwealth. Can you talk to us about your work to address zoning challenges?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Absolutely, we've had some major wins in the last few years, really, and more recently this past general session here in Kentucky. One of the things that kind of led up to this was years worth of groundwork from an education standpoint, from an advocacy standpoint. We've gotten heavily involved with the Kentucky League of Cities, with various housing stakeholders to really spend a lot of time educating what today's manufactured housing is, but also I think as important, if not more important, what manufactured housing isn't anymore, right? And so that has led to us being able to propose some legislation this year. This last fall, I presented to the Legislative Housing Task Force, which was a joint interim housing task force that was tasked with kind of outlining what are the issues in Kentucky from a housing perspective. And you saw anywhere from county and city officials to real estate professionals to area development districts kind of outline, hey, here are our challenges. And, we were one of the few that were there that actually were kind of able to present, hey, here's a solution. And that's what kind of spurred this legislation. It wound up being called House Bill 160. And basically what it was is it put us on the same kind of level playing field as site-built housing. I like to say manufactured housing is no longer a product, it's a process. And House Bill 160 kind of lends itself to that. And so basically what it is, in Kentucky, going back to 2001, we had a definition in our statute of a qualified manufactured home. It was KRS 100-348. And basically what it was a starting point for planning and zoning to be able to adopt in their ordinances and say, we will allow a qualified manufactured home, which has to be 20 feet wide, has to be built after, 2002 and has to be on a permanent foundation, that sort of thing. We will allow that. And then they could say with these additions, and it was always optional, right? And so what House Bill 160 did, it updated that definition, still kept the 20-foot wide, kept the minimum square footage. It changed the date to be kind of a rolling 5 years, where the home couldn't be manufactured any older than 5 years ago. And so it made it to where a local municipality can't exclude qualified manufactured homes from any single family residential zone. Now, that creates, some challenges too, right? You believe me, we had people from the country club neighborhood that showed up going, "You mean I'm going to have a trailer next to my $1.5 million home," right? So we have to be kind of realistic in setting up the guardrails that anybody would want, right? Whether that house be a site built or a factory built home. And so inside of the statute, that local municipality can govern the roof pitch. They can govern the square footage, the exterior finishings and facade, the foundation type, any attached structures like garages, carports, porches. And then they can regulate the setback requirements and kind of the lot orientation of that home. So they can regulate those things, but they can't regulate them any stronger than site built. So they can say, "Hey, you have to have a 512 roof pitch," but they have to tell site built the same thing, right? Because that's what we were running into before. They would say, "Oh, we allow manufactured housing, but you have to have 10 acres." It's a really good way of saying no manufactured housing, right? And so now they can't do that. And so again, it puts us on the same playing field. And that goes into effect in July of 2026. So we're really excited about it.
Well, congratulations. I know that's a lot of really good boots on the ground advocacy work that you and your members did to get that through. As a follow-up to that, you mentioned having to do some education, not only about what today's manufactured homes are, but what they aren't as well. And so I'm curious, as you were speaking with various state legislatures, their staff, their offices, what did you find was the messaging that resonated? And do you think that some of that could be applicable to other states across the country as well, looking to address this?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. I do. I think there was certainly messaging that kind of perked their ears up a little bit. And the key one, in my opinion, was I didn't shy away from our past. I started every presentation with the reputation that we have, we earned, right? And I would immediately go through, here's all the objections that you had before this presentation started that you walked into the room with. Safety, energy efficiency, value, appreciation. And I would go down through these lists that if you're in the factory built housing world, we hear day in and day out. And so rather than me give this presentation of here's how great we are, and in the back of their mind, they still have all these objections, let's rip the Band-Aid off at the very start and let's go down through those list of objections while also informing you of what today's industry looks like. And so, it was going through these, here's why manufactured housing is safe today. Why, if you're in a manufactured home, it's not scientifically proven that tornadoes are attracted to manufactured homes, despite what the weatherman may tell you, right? But here's why they're safer now. Here's the steps from the code and the factory level. But in Kentucky, as of 2019, not until 2019 was it a guarantee that every single new manufactured home was even inspected. Now it's required that 100% of the new manufactured homes are inspected. Talking about FHFA study where these homes appreciate at the same rate as site built. They don't negatively impact. Looking at the American Housing Survey from the Census Bureau that shows how manufactured housing holds up the same, if not better than site-built housing 10 years later. And so going through that list, I think really resonated and made some changes.
Yeah, and I really like that idea of being able to kind of lay out, here's what you probably think, and here's some myth busting to really kind of get you to the place where you can better understand this product. So that's terrific. So let's travel across the country to Southern California. Rashana, Next Step has worked with NPHS for a number of years now to incorporate manufactured housing into your programmatic work. Can you talk to us about Homes by NPHS and what you're hoping to achieve in addressing the housing needs for folks in the Inland Empire through this social enterprise model?
Absolutely. Well, of course, here in Southern California, real estate prices are obviously very high. And so being able to provide an affordable alternative for developers, nonprofit organizations, as well as for-profit organizations, workforce housing, things of that nature. And we're looking to really expand, like Logan mentioned, the minds and bust the myths of what a manufactured home is and what it is not. Manufactured homes honestly are not that popular on private land here in especially Southern California. And so we are looking to popularize that, and most of that is through education, educating our local municipalities, educating our assemblies and Congress and senators and things of that nature. So just really getting everybody acclimated to what a manufactured home is and how it can be used to keep homeownership affordable here in Southern California.
That's excellent, Roshana. And maybe you could talk to us a little bit more specifically about how exactly does Homes by NPHS operate in relation to NPHS?
And Homes by NPHS, I'm actually the dealer for the manufactured home. And so we actually have partnered with several factories here locally. And of course, Clayton being one of them here in right in our backyard here in Paris, California. And so really being able to provide quality homes, again, just to other organizations, to other developers. We have developer trainings that we have as well to be able to walk developers through the process of manufactured homes and how it differs from site built construction, and just explaining, what really it entails in putting a manufactured home onto a lot and considering it real estate, private property, and being able to move forward again with all of the financing options that are available. Now, NPHS, of course, us being a HUD approved counseling agency, we're also, really into the first time buyers with down payment assistance and all of those things. So, of course, it's very important to us to keep homeownership as affordable as possible.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you guys really, as I mentioned, Next Step has worked with you and your team there in Southern California for a number of years now. And you guys are definitely rock stars in this space. So we're glad to see you guys continuing to do what you do best there. So, and I see we've got a couple questions coming in the comments in the Q&A section. I think, Logan, I saw that you dropped some additional information in there. So thanks. As folks have questions, if any of the panelists have resources or answers they want to share, please feel free to do that as well. So Ramsey, you and I have had the opportunity to crisscross the country, talking to a lot of different housing stakeholders. I'm curious from your perspective, how have you seen the conversation shift around offsite construction, particularly for single family manufactured homes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know this well. I think everybody on this panel knows it well, that it's really shifted in that our industry is no longer being thought of as housing of last resort, right? When Logan was speaking about those stereotypes and stigmas, that's a lot of times the bucket that we got put into. And that's just not the case. And the fact that we have homes that have always made economic sense for a large swath of the population, that's always been true, but we've not been able to break into that consideration set. And I'm seeing that shift dramatically. I think one of the things that's been most surprising to me with that is how much there's been a better recognition of how attainably priced housing, affordable housing impacts economic growth of local areas. Had a number of chambers of commerce across the country reach out and go, hey, we recruited this business, they're coming in, we already don't have homes, how can you help us? And so to me, that's the biggest flip. One, that's coming from non-traditional housing stakeholders. And then two, that people are, those organizations, those groups are not asking, we're not going and knocking on their door saying, hey, can we please be part of the solution? We know we can be part of the solution. People are coming to us and saying, hey, how can you help us solve that? And that's just a major fundamental shift from where we were. And, here at Clayton, we're growing and shifting and moving from not just being able to build and sell a house to someone, then Roshana and her team, go and put it on a lot and finish it all out. Like, our team, the Clayton Development Group, has now expanded out to where we can do full turnkey service, right? From turning dirt and putting in infrastructure all the way to bringing in homes. And, I'm really proud of working on a particular project here in my hometown in Knoxville, where we're going to do 71 homes. Most of them are going to have solar shingles. They're going to meet our e-built standard, which means they're built to that DOE, Zero Energy Ready Home standard, saving consumers about 50% on their utilities. And the fact that we can do that really cradle to grave, from turning dirt to handing a consumer keys as they move into it, is really, really exciting. And I think that shift of our industry being able to function not just as a home builder, but as a full-scale development service that can bring about these homes. Because if you look at the home behind me, this is a cross-mod home we did in Atlanta. This looks like any other typical site built. And frankly, when we've sold these, a lot of the second, third consumers of those homes, purchasers of those homes, probably don't even know that they're buying a home that was built off site. So, I mean, the industry has evolved. The biggest shift really being that non-traditional housing stakeholders are recognizing the problem, and more stakeholders, traditional or otherwise, are coming to us and asking how can we partner together to solve it, particularly with urban infill, right? I've been a part of a lot of those projects, and that's just frankly, we weren't allowed to participate in a lot of urban corridors, and that's shifting and changing, unfortunately, due to the incredible need our country has for more attainably priced housing. But yeah, those are the biggest changes in my mind.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I kind of see from my perspective too is you're starting to see manufactured housing get included more holistically in conversations around how to address supply and affordability, right? There is less of an othering of manufactured housing as a solution, and it's kind of getting encapsulated in that conversation around missing middle housing, and I think that's excellent. And I think it's going to give a lot of opportunities for this market in the coming years to grow. And speaking of that, Logan, we're seeing more opportunities for legislative and regulatory policy that will hopefully expand this market. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what are the opportunities that you see for Kentucky, and what are those looming challenges that are also on the horizon?
Sure. Yeah. For Kentucky, obviously this House Bill 160, huge win that I think is really going to move the needle, certainly. But with any sort of growth creates growing pains. So this is going to require local municipalities that have planning and zoning to update their ordinances to reflect these new changes, right? And so because of that, you're going to have municipalities that want to figure out ways to manipulate the intent of the law. So, that's going to create challenges, but also it's going to create opportunities for us as an industry to rise to the occasion, right? We have been stuck in this kind of 9 to 11% of housing starts for a long time, right? We now have the capability to go beyond that because, as Ramsey alluded to, we've got product offerings, at various price points that we never have before, capabilities. That doesn't mean that we're abandoning that 9 to 11%. There is still that, what many would look at as a simplistic design, but I always tell people, don't confuse quality with cosmetic appeal, right? We still can build that simplistic design, but now we have the capability to build something like Ramsey was talking about. When you pull in the driveway, unless you saw it being transported there, you can't tell it's not a site built, right? And so educating legislators, educating policymakers, allowing them to kind of be able to see, feel, and touch, I think is going to be key. Educating appraisers, that's something that we've been doing as an association the last few years, is hosting continuing education for appraisers. I think that's going to be a key challenge as our industry grows, to be able to leverage what we can do there. And then also educating inside of the industry as well. One of our fastest growing segments in our industry are developers and nonprofits. And so these are folks that realize we can't site build our way out of this problem, right? And so they're coming to our industry going, we see this as a scalable solution and we want to get plugged in. And so, one, we have to make it to where they can get plugged in and we're not gatekeeping the industry, but also we want to be able to protect what it is that we've been trying to do for the last few decades of building a quality, safe, attainable home, right? So we don't want to just open it up and it's the Wild West all of a sudden, right? And so it creates some education for us to be able to then pass that education on to the consumer. And then the last thing I'll touch on is just the workforce. That's a huge, huge challenge. There was a study that came out last year that talked about for every 6 tradespeople that leave the industry, only 1 are replacing them. So we've put several kind of workforce initiatives on in the state of Kentucky. We're creating a virtual reality game where a student can put on a virtual reality headset and drive a house tug and set a house. And so trying to think outside of the box to be able to capture tomorrow's generation that's going to need a job and show them, hey, here's why our industry certainly makes sense.
Yeah, and I think for Shauna, this reminds me, I know that NPHS, you guys have kind of struggled, I think, with finding certified contractors and other folks working in this space. So anything to add there? And I know that's certainly a challenge on the horizon that we need to solve.
Definitely, again, because the manufactured home space is so unpopular here in Southern California, and there is definitely a shortage of the C47 installers to install the units. And so, of course, as I'm talking to general contractors, I'm letting them know, hey, look into becoming a C47's contractor, because it's just another tool in the tool belt, so to speak, and you can work with manufactured homes on the installation process. And again, not just on private property, but also in park communities as well. So yeah, just really trying to expand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Ramsey, so in addition to state houses, there are several opportunities at the federal level right now to expand this market. Can you speak to some of those and what their implications may be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity for our industry to capitalize on, changing and progressive innovations that we're doing. I mean, like I mentioned before, the cross-mod home was a revolution when you think about it, relative to the 60+ year history of our industry. The fact that we have a home that does appraise against site-built homes if there's no other cross-mods available, finances of 30-year conventional loan, those are things that are not typical or have existed for our industry. And when you think about the home buying experience for most consumers today, they're browsing Zillow, right? Like, we need homes that are going to be in the places that those consumers are shopping and looking, as opposed to driving that buyer to a typical retail home center. People want to just buy a house. They're thinking about the square footage, beds and baths, and price, right? Those are the kind of the litmus tests for people to move forward. So the fact that we can offer these homes is huge. But we also have the opportunity to expand upon that, right? We have the opportunity to move beyond just having this larger footprint home and having what we'd call a single section cross mod. That allows us to have homes that are even better fit for urban infill, would allow us to, when doing a full scale neighborhood, the one I mentioned earlier, 71 homes. If we had a single section, right, that could be potentially a lot more lots, and we could have a lot more character of the neighborhood. So it's not all, just this about, 1,600 square foot, 2-3 homes. So that's one of the biggest ones, is enabling that single section cross mod, expanding that access to financing, while also maintaining this, critical look of the fit and finish, that design depth and dimension that you get from the home that's built on site, with the porch and foundation in the garage, but the rest of the home being obviously built in the facility. The other is chassis removal. Right now, the HUD code, which, of course, regulates our entire industry, requires that steel frame chassis stay affixed to the home. This home is designed to sit for 30 years, right? That's going to be the mortgage written on this home. It's a waste of the steel. The steel is not structurally significant to the home any longer. We actually have to kind of over-engineer the foundation to support the outriggers and steel beams to ensure it doesn't rip the floor out over time, right? This is on a perimeter load-bearing foundation. And so that steel frame is really just a lot of cost, a lot of environmental resources that go into the production of steel. And it's not really benefiting anyone. There's an opportunity, if we can strike that language, and it will require an act of Congress to get there. But if we can strike that language from the HUD code, it doesn't mean that we can't use homes that are still attached to a steel chassis, because there'll still be a need for that. But it means that we can open up a whole new box of innovation in terms of home design. We can reduce that total consumption of steel, which is, as mentioned, incredibly resource intensive. And ultimately, we're going to be lowering the cost of homes. So in my mind, that's a win across the board, right? When you think about what we do now in single family, that is what our bread and butter, right? I would argue that Clayton does single family, offsite, onsite, whatever, the best in the entire world, right? But that is what we do, single family. If we move to a place where we don't have to have those chassis, it becomes a lot easier for us to go vertical, creates a lot of new opportunity for the efficiencies that come from building a home inside a climate controlled environment to go beyond just single family housing. So in my mind, those are the two biggest ones. A single section cross mod and getting to a place where we can have chassis removal just opens up so much new opportunity and potential and helps us expand, as Logan mentioned, that 9-10%. You look back over 60 years, that's about where we're at for single family starts. This gives us the opportunity to grow that to 12, 15, 20%, right? It gives us the opportunity to really grow and help better solve the affordable housing crisis that we have here.
Yeah, lots of room for innovation. I think, both of those things I think would really create some exciting opportunities in the market to expand it, and also to just kind of see how far we can push the design and construction of these homes as well. So Ramsey touched on finance, and so Jill, I want to shift over to you and talk about financing. So some of the feedback that we hear at Next Step is that we need more actors in the manufactured housing finance landscape to help facilitate market growth. What are some of the challenges and opportunities that you see from the perspective of your member financial institutions in this space?
Well, we have seen through our other programs that many of our members do finance manufactured homes. However, they're doing it at an adjustable rate mortgage, and a portfolio loan. We'd love to see them offer better terms for these homes. I think it's a lack of education. I mean, I know it is. We all know that. I didn't understand. I've learned a lot here today. I think they need to realize that there is much better quality and they are desirable homes. But people have this idea in their mind that, I can remember when I was an underwriter and, a manufactured home would cross my desk. And my first thought was, what is the economic life of this dwelling? So, we would automatically think, oh, I'm not going to offer a 30-year mortgage on that. We need to change that thought process. So, and I think our members will be open to this. We're just going to have to take them by the hand and convince them.
Yeah, and one of our participants in the chat brought up the Fannie and Freddie finance programs available, MH Advantage and Choice Home, and I think certainly I think everyone on this call would echo that those have really been game changing. I think from a financing perspective, when Ramsey talks about cross mod homes, these are homes that are going to qualify for that 30-year financing on par with site-built homes available through those programs that are offered by Fannie and Freddie. We've had our developer partners tell us that in order for them to do more of this work and to continue to do this work, those financing mechanisms are truly essential and game-changing. So, Shauna, sticking with finance, how does NPHS's role as a CDFI play into the homes by NPHS model?
I will say that NPHS is number one, my largest client. As for the community development that they do, they actually purchase homes from, again, me as a dealer and our local factories here, and being able to place them on, we do a lot of infill scattered site work with various cities. And so that enables us to, again, keeping the affordability for homeowners. And then as that CDFI, we're then able to have them have the homeowners get loans for these now homes that are now considered real estate. After we, again, like Ramsey, have the garage attached and everything, and the homes behind me just kind of reflect the homes that we are able now to sell to our clients. And just to give you an idea, our last phase, the homes appraised for over $300,000, but our first-time buyers only had to qualify for $180,000. And so really being able to stack the various down payment assistance programs and participation from our various city partners and things of that nature, we're able to ensure that families who typically would not be able to afford a home at all in Southern California are now homeowners.
Yeah, and I know that the housing market is certainly challenging all across the country, but I think that there's particularly so much room for the expansion of manufactured housing in really high cost markets like you guys are dealing with in Southern California, right? That kind of the disparity between a site-built home and a manufactured home and that cost difference is really highlighted when you get into some of those really higher cost markets.
Absolutely.
So questions for I want to pose to all of you here. One of the things that we talk about as next step is that we need to bring more folks under the tent, right? And kind of expand who we're talking to about this. So from your perspectives, who do we need to bring under the tent in order to expand the market for manufactured housing and community development solutions? Let's start with Jill.
Well, since I work for FHLB, I have to say our members, we need to educate our members, but I think we also need to educate the realtors too. Make sure they all understand, and really just the public in general. I was not aware of the changes in this, that all of these homes will now be inspected, that, Clayton Homes is building homes that are energy efficient, that have solar panels. Ramsey, that house behind you is adorable. What is the average cost to build that home in Knoxville?
Yeah, so I can tell you that the average consumer cost for these homes nationwide, for the very one you see behind me, is between $350,000 and $375,000. So it is more of an entry price point for two-income family, not on the most affordable end of what we can do. But as I always tell people, manufactured housing as an industry is not a monolith, right? If you have a housing challenge that you need to be solved for $60,000-$70,000, between that and $400,000 or $500,000, like, we have the housing solution for you. So it's a matter of just determining what price points we need to hit, or looking at the AMI for wherever the home's going to be placed. So nationwide, that's about the consumer cost.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point, Ramsey, that there is a lot of flexibility in this market for hitting folks at different price points and kind of meeting them where they're coming from, right? So I think that's critically important. Other folks, ideas on who all else we need to bring under the tent? Who should we be talking to that we're kind of not doing a great job of reaching right now that we need to talk more to?
I can say in my neck of the woods, it's not just the city officials, but it's actually those that are issuing the permits, those that are at the desk. They don't understand what manufactured homes are, and when you're trying to place them on permanent foundation. And so, for them, it's just kind of like, okay, I know traditional site built homes and what's required for that, but then trying to compare apples to apples, well, it's not quite the same apple, it's a different kind of apple, kind of thing. And so really being able to explain those differences and have them understand that ultimately it will be real estate, it will be on permanent foundation. No, it's not going to move, and it's really explaining all of those things to those that are actually behind the counters issuing the permits.
Anyone else thoughts on who all we need to bring under the tent?
Yeah, I'd jump in and say, one, I think we need to be doing, as an industry, things way more like what Logan has done, participating in the League of Cities. Like, I think going and having those conversations with people that we do not traditionally think of as housing stakeholders, because it does feel like, great, as you mentioned earlier, the industry now is being included, right? Like, we're being talked about within housing stakeholders as part of that solution. I've heard and seen housing information webinars where people are talking glowingly about our industry, and I had no clue they knew anything about it before I saw them getting into it, right? And so, in the same way that we've been engaging with chambers of commerce, I think there's new and interesting and different ways for us to present ourselves as a housing solution, more than just thinking about how can we, drive prices down to the absolute lowest cost to take care of our most vulnerable. As Logan said before, we need that 9-10% that we've always been. We can't and won't ever walk away from that, right? But as you move up in that price point, we do have those middle income households that are unfortunately getting squeezed out of the market right now. I think the more we can go out and have conversations with, the people who can advocate and influence change in a local area, but are not necessarily the housing organization or me coming in and saying, hey, we really want to do this development. If we've got people who are already, trusted, valued members of the community advocating for us, we're going to see a lot more success. So in my mind, it's building those relationships with non-traditional housing stakeholders who are better recognizing that housing is a critical part of everything else they're working on.
Yeah, I would just add, certainly developers are coming into our industry, as I mentioned earlier, more and more site builders wanting to get involved. In Kentucky, when you look at AMI for Kentucky compared to a lot of other states, it's certainly on the lower end. So keep that in mind when I say this pricing. But the day that I presented to the Legislative Housing Task Force, I presented the same day that the Home Builders Association did. And one of the legislators asked them, they said, what does the price of a starter home cost to be built in Kentucky? Now, starter, okay, and this is home builders. This is their representative, the one that's supposed to sell their industry. They said $400,000 for a starter in Kentucky. Now, that's substantial, right, for a starter home. And so Ramsey's dead on, right? For us to be able to extend beyond this 9 to 10 to 11%, it's not that we're walking away from, those more attainable and more affordable priced homes, but to be able to have that extension is something that we haven't had before. And that's why I think developers are looking at us so heavily. And so I think that's certainly part of it. The other aspect is our lenders, right? There are more and more changes coming out in the lending space for our industry than I think in a long time, from the Fannie, the Freddie, the FHA programs, where it does require, site-built comps or other cross-mod or MH Advantage homes. I think that's a substantial change. But overall, I mean, honestly, you get me on an elevator with somebody and somebody asks me what I do. It's one of those things, like, it needs to be a couple hundred stories tall building for us to be able to get off that elevator. Because if you're willing to listen, I'm willing to tell you about what our industry does, because there are so many changes and it is such a solution for this, not just attainable housing crisis, but housing crisis, period. We're the only industry that can scale the amount of inventory that's needed. Kentucky, we're 206,000 homes short. And if no action's taken without this House bill that was passed and signed, by 2029, we're going to be close to 290,000 homes short. And that's a nationwide story. And I really feel like the red carpet has been rolled out for our industry. We just have to walk on it.
I think that's very well said, and I think probably a really good opportunity for us to segue, into some of these questions that we've gotten from folks. So I'll go ahead and get to some of these. Again, for those of you who are on the webinar, we encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A function. If we don't get a chance to answer all of your questions, you can find my contact information at the end of the webinar, and we can certainly follow up with you. So one of the questions we have, can this product be used with Fannie Mae's home style energy mortgage, which allows for upgrades at the time of purchase? So I'm not sure if anybody has the specific answer to that question. And if not, we can certainly follow up with folks and try to get those answers. No, I don't think so. So again, my information will be included at the end of this. So follow up with me, and we can track down through those questions that we can't answer. We'll be sure to get those answered for you. Our next question, are we talking HUD building code or IRC code? So who would like to give a really quick kind of down and dirty definition of the HUD code for participants?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. Since I work for a home builder, you'd hope I'd know. So we're talking about the HUD code. The HUD code is a national, best way to think about it, national building code that regulates our entire industry. I'd argue it helps enable us to move at the speed that we do because, if you think about zoning, right, it's inherently a wild patchwork of different policies and regulations that can move and change even within one city, right? And so this gives us a way to build the same standard each and every time. An IRC built home can be done in a facility, but you're going to have a little bit of slowdown because we're going to have to figure out exactly the IRC adopted in that municipality where the home is going to be placed. And frankly, for what we do, that e-built feature that I talked about earlier, that zero energy ready home, we can't really achieve that with doing modular because it's so much more difficult to do because of all the variants, in the codes. But with HUD, we're able to execute it on every single home and provide the consumer that long-term savings because we think about that cost holistically, not just that initial purchase price. We need people to be able to afford and stay in their homes, stay under that 30% of their funds going towards housing, which is supposed to include their utility costs. So this is, it's one of the reasons we advocate for HUD and what we've been talking about when I've referred to it. I think the whole panel, we say manufactured homes, we're referring to a home that's built to that HUD code.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good definition of that. Next question, and Roshana, this is a great one for you. Are there any examples of your communities that have a factory built ADU?
Any examples of communities? We actually did a demonstration project that had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home that we site built a garage to be attached, but we also added an ADU to that lot as well. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 800 square feet. And then we added a carport for that unit as well. So we are looking to do some more infill projects, including ADUs with the primary home as well. We were looking and our city of Palm Springs, we were looking at them. They initially wanted to do 3 single family homes with 3 ADUs. But again, when you're working with lower income families and making them homeowners, you don't want to make them a homeowner and a landlord at the same time. So we kind of decided on lot splits would be better for that project. But we do have some future projects that will have ADUs on the lots with the primary home as well.
Excellent. And Ramsey, anything to add on Clayton? You guys, anything in the ADU space? I know certainly a hot topic across the country as a means to help address affordable housing supply.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's something we're always looking at and expanding. And, some of our smaller footprint homes have certainly been used there. But, going back to, I think one of the big themes of what we're talking about here today, and the industry has more broadly for a couple of years now, is zoning. And when you start factoring in not just a home built to the HUD code and the zoning challenge you may have with that, but also then ADU, it can get very complex. So right now it's been more demand driven when people are coming to us and asking for a home to use as that solution. I'd love to see more broad universal code like we have with the HUD code for building that would make it easier for us to go out and implement that. But I know that as we evaluate new neighborhoods and things, we're thinking about that as a thing to start with, not just as a thing to always have. But to Roshana's point, no, I might not want to do that with every home because that's a lot of extra responsibility to put on someone to also be a landlord. So, but we are always exploring ways to create more density and create more opportunity for home ownership.
So another question in the comments. So Ramsey, in kind of talking about the opportunity for chassis removal, how close are we potentially to getting that change in the HUD code?
If I knew exactly what Congress was going to do next, I'd probably be doing something different, right? So I can't really say. I really wouldn't even want to, even if I had my congressman call me and say it's going to pass tomorrow, right? Because you just don't know until you know, I think, with a lot of those things. And so I can't give an exact time frame. I do know it's a focus of ours and a thing that we, passionately advocate for.
One thing I would add to that, once that's done at the federal level, and some states are already kind of starting this groundwork, a lot of states mimic the definition at the federal level. And rather than just referencing the federal definition, they copy and paste it, right? And so once that work is done at the federal level and changing that definition, then that likely in most states that's going to have to happen at the state level as well.
Another question on appreciation. Could you touch on the difference of how manufactured housing appreciates in value compared to a site-built home with MH origination costs being much lower? This could be a swaying point for borrowers who are eventually looking to sell after a period of time. open to anyone on the panel.
I put a screenshot in the chat. This is a graph from the FHFA study that they did back in 2018. There's some more updated studies since then where this is actually even tighter. But you know, I love Dave Ramsey, but he unfortunately is wrong nowadays when he says that manufactured homes depreciate in value. You know, this isn't industry data that shows otherwise. This is Federal Housing Finance Agency that shows these do appreciate now at that same rate. Give you an example, we are doing a pilot project in the city of Versailles. If you read it, it looks like Versailles. It's Versailles in Kentucky. But it's a house manufactured home that we placed on a city-owned lot. Had it open for about 6 weeks to show the citizens of Versailles that, hey, it's not a mobile home anymore. But, you know, they're so confident in the appraisal of this and what it's going to be able to sell for. They're actually putting a cap on the ability to buy it and flip it. They don't want someone to buy it on Tuesday, sell it on Wednesday for a massive profit because of what we expect the appraisal to come back at. So it's not what it used to be in appraisals for sure.
Absolutely. I know with our first phase, and it wasn't even MH Advantage or Choice Home. It was just, you know, a manufactured home that we put on city-owned land that we had purchased, and we did the garage that was attached. And actually, it was one of my photos in the background. It was a corner lot, and so she had actually purchased that home for $280,000. And in 3 years, she had to move to another state to care for her mom, but she had gained $100,000 in equity here in Southern California. And so, I mean, you know, now if you're adding in the Choice Home as well as the MH Advantage, you know, appraisers have to use site-built homes in order to produce their appraisal. So definitely really being able to up the notch there and really have that value be added in. And so again, as long as the homeowner cares for their home, as if with any home, every home requires care. And so as long as the homeowner is caring for their home, manufactured homes can last, and I would even say outlast even site-built homes, because most of the times when I'm talking to clients, just to give them a reference, I'm saying, cut your house in half and drive it down the freeway at about 65 miles per hour. What do you anticipate would happen to your home right now? These homes are built to be transported. So that's just kind of the idea there.
Yeah, and Rashawn, I remember we did some storytelling and some videos with that set of particular homeowners, and I always remember what stood out to me was her response when asking about whether she knew her home was a manufactured home or anything when she first came to see it, and she said she didn't know, she just knew it was the nicest home on the block to her. So you know, really, that quote's always stuck with me from that particular storytelling opportunity. So. Well, we are at time, folks, and I very much appreciate all of you joining us this afternoon. Again, I very much thank our panel of experts for joining us and providing some of these insights into how we can better expand the manufactured housing market. My contact information is on the screen, so you can please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and we look forward to continuing this conversation with you all. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.